Now, I am so excited to introduce our speakers. We have Tiffany Johnson joining us. Tiffany is an ethical data advocate with 14 plus years of strategic data and technology experience in advertising and consulting. She is an ethical data advocate and strong believer in helping companies and individuals discover their own path towards ethical data ownership, transparency, and use. Tiffany believes in challenging the conversation on how we collect data and how that data can help businesses stay innovative. She's worked on IBM, Samsung, Nissan, IDEMIA, and other accounts. She can be found on social channels at TJ Does Data. We'll share that info in the chat in just a moment. And we're so excited to have her joining us today. She is going to be joined in conversation with our own amazing Sanmaya Mohanty, who is our virtual summit assistant and a recent and amazing addition to the PTF family. So Sanmaya and Tiffany, take it away.
Yeah. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi.
Hi, Tiffany. How are you? So glad to have you speaking with us at the Tech for Social Impact Summit. So to begin the summit, why don't we start with your journey and you tell about yourself and how, what was your path to becoming an ethical data advocate?
Absolutely. So I have been in the advertising world for quite a few years, and really enjoyed, like you do a lot of travel, right? When you're in this world, and you always inevitably, like you go to the airport bar and you sit there and you say, okay, so what do you do for a living? And people ask me that question. And I'm like, oh, well, do you have Google? And they're like, yeah, I've got Google. I'm like, cool, you use Facebook as well? Oh, absolutely use Facebook. I'm like, good. So I'm the person that collects all your data. I know where you live, I know how many kids you have, I know how much money you make, I know what kind of job you do, I know what kind of beer you like to drink, and not just because I'm sitting next to you. I actually know a lot about you as a person, and I take all of that data and I turn it into insights and I sell it to other companies, and then I also sell it to businesses, and we market products specifically aimed at you. And so, inevitably people are like, wait, how can I stop this? Is there a way to turn this off? I'm like, nope, can't put the genie back in the bottle, guys. But eventually over time, what I came to realize is that this was a model that, entire industries, companies are built on. And, something we have so much data at our fingertips. It was never meant to be used quite like this. I think that over time, as things just accumulated, we realized we just were collecting more and more data about people, and it started to like tip over that point of becoming a little creepy, right? When we can tell like what kind of doctors you visit, when we can tell what you drink, like we can tell like all of this information about you. And at some point I was transferring over what we call first party data. So records of people for for a client, millions and millions of records. And at some point I sat back and I was like, well, I don't know if we should be doing this, right? Like there's like, what can you be doing in the industry? And you can do almost anything. We have amazing technology, but how often do we take a step back and ask, what should we be doing? And I started to ask that question, and right about that same time, got to meet some really great people in the data privacy and data ethics world, including, we've all heard of anything about Cambridge Analytica. I was in the news, a few years back, and got to meet one of their whistleblowers, Bernie Kaiser, and, really started working on data ethics and privacy, and started to lead that actually at one of the companies I was at, creating a vertical. How can we become more ethical in our data use? And how do we take into consideration the trends as people become more and more aware of the kind of data that we're collecting, how we're using it, and what can we do to change the conversation? How can we have better conversations about this? So that's a little bit of my background and how I came into this passion.
Cool. Just to note, if I was sitting beside you in that airport, I'd be freaked out by listening to all of that. But that's the truth, right? So there was this Apple ad back in the day that, that showed us, okay, so we know all this about you. So, this is not, so in the iOS ecosystem, we are kind of keeping this data closed, but for other ecosystems like Android, maybe that's not the case. So there was this ad, and I could totally recall this ad, and the story that you recounted, that just fits. So I mean, your title reads data ethical. I mean, you're totally into the ethical aspects of using data, right? So what motivated you to dig into data privacy and data ethics? Was that the eureka moment that you just, kind of explained that, okay, I'm dealing with a huge list and, data lakes. And so is it what I should be doing with the technology, or what was it? I'd love to know.
It really was. It really was the massive amounts of data, the massive amounts of data that was being collected and used, and I really thought like people should be able to own their own data. And it turns out that this concept of data ownership, not a new concept, something that was really gaining traction right around the same time that I was having some of these thoughts, and so what really got me into it, and I do want to differentiate at least one thing here. There is a big difference between data privacy and data ethics, right? So data privacy is definitely legal compliance. When we think about legal compliance, we think about you think about GDPR. So that was another one of the things that came along in the ad industry. Not a huge impact in the US because obviously it affects the European market, but we had a lot of global clients who had to keep that in mind as well. And so starting to look at these kinds of trends, and then beyond just data privacy, because we don't have a ton of laws, even still in the US, we still don't have a ton of laws. We've got California CCPA, that's the California Consumer Protection Act. We've got Florida has has passed a bill about data privacy. I currently advise a couple of New York State senators on some of the New York privacy legislation, and that's compliance with the law, right? So beyond that, there's this other aspect of it that is this trust component between companies and consumers. And consumers want to trust the companies they're doing business with. And you often find too that there's a solid relationship, like if between trust with consumers and companies. And so it was really from that I started to look into, okay, so above and beyond just legal compliance, what are the benefits of being more ethical in your data use, and asking, what should you be doing? How should you be protecting your consumers? How are you using that data? Is it in line with your corporate policies? Is it in line with how you think your company should be treating your consumers? And so that's really kind of how I got into this, and and making that differentiation again, incredibly important, because ethics is above and beyond that legal compliance. It's taking that next step, and I think it can be very beneficial for companies and also obviously for consumers.
Absolutely. So adding on to that, so do you think there's been, so after the Cambridge Analytica fiasco kind of got exposed and everyone got to know that there's a company that has around more than 200 plus data points on each individual American, right? That was the count, if I'm not wrong. So, so do you think, or what are the current trends that are happening in the data privacy and the ethics space, and how things are getting changed? Like 2 years before the line, 2 years down the line, I believe not many people were aware of, the need to protect your own individual data and how your data is being used to retarget ads and, marketing materials towards you. So how do you think the landscape has changed, and what are the positive, things that are happening in this arena, and what are the latest trends?
Absolutely. So I think that things have really, I think Cambridge Analytica was a bit of a catalyst, right? It really started to shift and become much more mainstream when everybody heard about, how they had collected so much data on people, but then how they had used that data too. And I think so what we see a lot in, we do a lot of polling and a lot of research as well. We see a lot of research that comes out that some of the big trends, some of the things that have shifted really over the past couple of years, and I think are continuing to shift, is so we have so much more technology, so much more ability to track everything that you do, because you're holding this phone, in your hand, that it is, it tracks everything, where your location is, what you're searching, and it even tracks app to app, how often you play games, that kind of thing, all of your interests. And so we've gotten to this point where we collect so much data, and that's one of the big trends is this increase in data collection, right? And along with this, some of the research that we've found as well is people are now aware of it. They're like, oh, when I get in my car and it is a Monday morning and my my Google pings me and says, oh, do you want to drive to this place that you normally drive to? It's like, wait a second. I mean, yes, I do want to drive there, but that's a little bit creepy.
Why do we
like,
know that?
yeah. And so I see we see a lot of that too. And then we see a lot of people who they know this, but they're like, well, what do we do? Like, they feel helpless in this situation. They feel like they are, all this data is being collected. They're becoming more educated about it. They're aware of it. It's because of all this targeting. It's because when you have a conversation, all of a sudden you get targeted with ads about that conversation. And so they see this and they're like, well, what do we do about this? How do we stop this? And they feel very powerless, right? And so they look to companies. They are, it was a huge number in one piece of research that I quote often. It was 91% of the people that were polled, and this was an internal research survey that we did. 91% of people said that they expect businesses to protect their personal data and to be responsible for that personal data. And so that's a huge amount of people. And so we looked at that and took a little bit further look and realized that consumers are aware that what companies are doing, and they're like, hey, companies, we want you to be better. We want you to start protecting us. And so a lot of the trends that we're seeing now are more permission-based data collection. So going to the consumer, and this requires having a plan. This requires knowing how you're going to use that data, what data you're going to collect, and going to that consumer and saying, hey, so we're collecting this data. And here's how we're planning to use it. Are you okay with that? So it's a lot of permission-based data. And I would have to tell you that my hope, now 2 years might be a little, might be a little impractical on this one, but it is my hope that in 2 years that we have some more concrete ways that people can own their data. So think of like your bank account right now. You log in, you see where your money is, you see where it's going, you see where it's coming in, you have all those numbers. So think of it as a data bank account. You log in, here's all of your data. You can see where it's going out, you can see where it's coming in, and then you get to say who actually gets to use your data. How do they use it? Do you make money from it? Maybe you get promotions for it. And then I also think that it just leads to better business in general, because then you as a business, you don't have to question it anymore. You know that person wants to hear from you. You know that person has actively sought you out and is saying, yes, please, here's my data. Give me, I'd love to know, what is the latest sneaker release? What is the latest whiskey that you've developed? I want to hear about that. What is the latest, the latest trend in clothing, and they want to hear about that, and they want to hear about it from your company. And so you know how to target much better as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, integrating active consent. So by giving permission, we are giving consent technically, but that's passive consent, right? So yeah, I can totally imagine that. Like for instance, now Google is giving, there's this option that where you can download all your user data. Facebook is giving that option too. But if there was a centralized place that, okay, where you can see this, that all the data, all the companies and all the big MNCs are targeting about you, taking from you all that in single place and how that is being used. So that would be really great. So basically, other than
that's it exactly, but a centralized location that is personal to you, that you get to control, I think is really the big differentiator here, because right now there are centralized data hubs. Google is one of them, Facebook is one of them, Amazon, where they collect a lot of your data, but you have no control over it. So that centralized place where you get to have control, that's the ideal world, right? That's the hopefully the future of data.
Absolutely. So as you just mentioned, so as an end consumer, so I've been using a lot of products like, let's say, Google Home or Alexa. So I feel, whenever I have some conversation and the next day I see an ad pop up, let's say in Amazon, or, Google gives me a YouTube ad. So yeah, we do feel helpless. And what would be your suggestion? So as a data privacy advocate and ethical data advocate, what's your take? So how do you protect your data? What are the steps that you do take to kind of, stay secure, stay in control of your data?
So I will have to tell you that nothing is perfect right now, right? That nobody reads all of those T's and C's, first of all. But I tend to favor companies and also products that do things like block cookies.
Mhm.
So I know that, so Chrome was ending cookies, right? We've been talking about, and cookies, just for relevant context, cookies are little snippets of code that sit on your
Mhm.
browsers that collect information about you, and they follow you around the web, right? And so there are browsers that do block these already. And Brave browser is a great one. So I use Brave, which
Okay.
blocks any kind of data collection. And then also means that I see fewer ads, and anything I do, like, I have a choice. I say, yes, I want to see this ad, or no, I don't think that
Mhm.
ad's for me. And so I get a lot more choice with, those kinds of things as well. Also, actually, I will tell you, like, a big fan of Apple right now. Again, no
Okay.
company is perfect, but I like Apple's ability to have a little more control over what apps are collecting my data, saying, no, I don't want you to track. And I think that these are the kinds of things that if you pay attention to just a little bit here and there, what you'll find out is that you can make different choices, right? Still be
Yeah.
functional in terms of how you are surfing the web, how you're downloading apps, how you're playing your favorite games, but being able to make those choices. And when that little window pops up, actually reading the question, like I said,
Yeah.
nobody can read all those T's and C's, but if it gives you an option, I will tell you, I always take that extra second or two to say, yeah, I don't want to be tracked.
Mhm.
And then there's also companies that are starting to form right now. One good example I've seen is BigToken. BigToken is a company that allows you to, it's an app that you download. What it does is it actually gives you, it's properly permissioned. It gives you games to play, surveys to take. But
Mhm.
it says, are you willing to share your data with these companies? And if you are, then you can choose to share your data. And these are the kinds of companies that are really starting to give you options to own your
Yeah.
data, to see what it looks like, and to trade your data for discounts, for money, for
Mhm.
promotions, things like that. And so, like, there are companies like this that I see coming up. So I think supporting companies that up and coming companies that allow you to really start to control your data, paying attention to that,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and even taking those few extra seconds to say, oh, please don't track me, or if you're fine with being tracked, that's okay too. Like, it's
Mhm.
okay if you want, like I said, if you want to hear from those companies, by all means, say, yeah, go ahead, track me, because I want to hear from you. And that's perfectly okay as well. It's just giving people the choice. And I think,
Absolutely.
I advocate for companies to give more choice. And then also for consumers, some of the things that you can do to protect yourself is to just spend those couple extra seconds,
Yeah.
look at things. Um,
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you're getting tracked, so you very well get, some other added benefits from it, be it, getting payment for you, because end of the day, the big corps are making money from this data. So if you get paid a small portion of it, that would be just, the butter on the topping. So adding on to this, this debate, there's a huge debate going on with respect to search engines, because, search engine is a place where most of us spend, with respect to, we spend all our queries, what we want to search, what we want to buy. So there's a huge debate going on between Google and DuckDuckGo. So what's your take on that? So
Between Google and DuckDuckGo.
yeah,
So this is another one of those choices, right?
yeah,
And it is and I am all about choice, right? So, like, I
mhm,
advocate for data ethics, and I think that there are many things that we can be doing better as companies,
yeah,
and as businesses, but also this relies on the consumer too, to decide that they want that choice and to make choices that make sense for them. And so I think, and I've definitely seen this debate a little bit, but that's another one of those choices. It's the difference between using, if you're going to use Chrome or you're going to use Firefox, and then instead of using those, you use Brave browser.
mhm,
And so Brave browser might mean that you have to go download it, and then and actually use that one. So DuckDuckGo, I think the same kind of concept, right?
yeah,
So do you want to keep using Google? And if you do,
mhm,
that's fine. I'm well aware of what Google tracks on me in terms of my search, what they're collecting, how they're saving it.
yeah,
Um, But I will say that even I still use Google. It's habit. I go there, I search for it. But DuckDuckGo it's a choice. It's another one of those choices where you say, oh, here's an alternative solution in the marketplace. How can I better support companies that give me choice? And are transparent about how they're using my data, because those are really the key components, I think, of data ethics.
Absolutely, because there's no one size fits all concept in this market. So for someone, DuckDuckGo could be the better option, and for others, Google is the way to go out. And so just to add on this, so you started your career in data. I mean, maybe as a data engineer or data scientist. Then what was your journey? I mean, for everyone who's tuned in and who are starting in their journeys in the data science field. So for instance, I'm a data analyst. I'm studying data analysis, and I'm studying data engineering in my master's. So what is the ideal path like to becoming a data privacy and ethical data advocate? And so what are the skills you need to have, and how did you land there? What would be your suggestion to them?
Absolutely. And so, because from the data analyst side, I mean, yes, absolutely. Started out actually in my career, I was a computer programmer initially. Before I actually I got my master's in advertising at Syracuse University. But even then, I had gotten into mostly digital, like digital advertising, digital media buying, and it is not always an easy field to get into initially. So you absolutely need to have a lot of persistence and a lot of patience. And then also what we're seeing skill-wise in the marketplace today, the one thing that has really just defined how I approach things differently than just an analyst or like a computer engineer, which these are amazing roles. But when you start to learn these engineering and computer programming, you start to look at how you analyze data, and you're building dashboards, you're doing all this, and you come to this point where you start to ask why. Right? Just like when I'm processing all this data, I started to ask questions, right? So I think it's an inquisitiveness, and one of the key things is being strategic. So asking, why am I doing this? Why does this matter? So if you're going to be analyzing data and you have all those amazing technical skills that come with this kind of role, then you have to go that step further, and you have to look at this data and how you strategically apply it. And I call this ethical data strategy as well, because data ethics on its core is fantastic. Here's principles, guidelines, things that you should be doing, but then how does that impact a business? Why does it matter? And I think that strategic step of asking why is really skill-wise what we're hoping to see. Like, and when I do interviews and when I look at for people to join my team, these are the kinds of things that I look for: is people who are inquisitive, people who ask why, people who start to really analyze things and go that step further and be super strategic with the data they're collecting.
So basically, is the skills that I have in the data domain, are they affecting the society for good? So if they are, then I should probably continue. And if they are not, I should probably question. So that's the crux of, your message. So yeah, so moving forward, so basically I wanted to ask, so you have this journey, right? So looking back, what do you think, things that you could have done differently? What are the areas that, you look back in retrospect that, okay, these are the things that I could have done differently? So, yeah.
So that's an interesting question, but I will tell you that I am one of those people that lives with very few regrets. And as far as doing things differently, not a whole lot. It's been it's not, it was not a smooth journey at any point in time to get to where I am. However, I know that in terms of, I wouldn't say that I would do anything differently aside from looking earlier in my career and looking earlier to say, to really start to interpret how you respond to situations instead of reacting, right? So we all have bad days. We all have a boss that yells at us. We all have something that goes terribly wrong. We feel underappreciated, that kind of thing. And this happens everywhere. And so I would have to say to that is, learning, the only thing I would have done really differently is learning earlier on how to respond to situations and not react. and be a little calmer. Understand that life is long, and not every moment, is a moment to panic or a moment to have like a bad reaction, and to kind of process that a little bit differently. But I do know that every bump in the road, every hard time, every good time, every person I've met has led me to what has been so far an amazing career. And I can only hope that that is what happens for everybody, is that they appreciate the hard times as well as the good, and know that that's what leads to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Great nuggets of wisdom, Tiffany. So we have a question from Tessa. So I'm curious as to how you see Apple's Express opt-in affecting the advertising industry and its activity on which so many businesses rely. For example, the current data I have seen on how many people are opting into Apple's permission prompt shows that the ability to track has gone from 70% to around 10 to 15%. How do you think advertisers will be able to address this gap and continue to effectively market their products and services to the digital platform users?
So first off, it's huge. It's going to have a huge impact. But two things to keep in mind is one, that every business should have their own first party data collection system, right? So every business should be going out to their consumers, knowing who their consumers are, asking them for permission to use their data outside of the Apple platform. Second, if all else fails, you do know that Apple is spinning up their own ad platform where you can purchase ads through Apple, which is a very smart move on their part. A little tricky, but a smart move on their part, because Apple is still collecting data on you. They're just not allowing those apps to collect data on you. So very fine distinction, but there are ways around it. And also, if you are only relying on that third-party data collection from Apple, then the rest of your data strategy is severely lacking and needs to be paid better attention to, because those are the ways that you solve for that outside of Apple.
Cool. So as we are moving to the end of the session, so where can we learn more about you and how can we connect with you?
Absolutely. So I hopefully this has been shared too on the chat, or so LinkedIn, great place. I post regularly on LinkedIn. Also, you can find me on pretty much any social platform at TJ Does Data. So, I speak on Clubhouse from time to time. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram under TJ Does Data.
Cool. It was nice to have you, Tiffany, and everything I got to learn from you and the audience that learned from you. So looking forward to have you soon. And thank you. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.